Hey there everyone, and welcome to RPG Horror Story Cringe with DnD Doge. In today's episode, we have a tale about a first-time player dealing with an unfair dungeon master, a story about a suspected furry inserting questionable things into a game of Dungeons & Dragons, and much more. But before we get into those, here's a special message from Ziggy.
Por favor, dale me gusta, comenta y suscribete. Cadena por favor. Hurrah.
He sure loves his string. Anyway, with that said, let's get into these stories. Why I won't play in a particular DM's games, by Reddit user SushiCat323. This happened a long time ago, back in the dark ages of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. I had just been introduced to my friend group, and they all had this strange game that they played each week called Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. A couple of my new friends gave me a brief overview of the game and asked their DM if I could join. He agreed, but said he wasn't planning on starting a new game anytime soon, so he said that I could join their existing one. I agreed and joined some friends in making a character. I don't remember what type of character I was playing, but the outcome wouldn't have been different, so it doesn't matter. My first session comes around, and the DM overviews my character. It was a level 8 campaign, so my friends helped me build a level 8 character. The DM immediately states that because I'm a new player, I should learn how to play at level 1. That way I would learn how to level up properly. Being the dumbass I was, and still am, I thought that this wouldn't be a problem, and there wasn't much pushback to his decision, so I just went along with a level 1 character in a level 8 campaign. This was a mistake. To be honest, joining his game in the first place was a mistake, but I wasn't going to learn that until I was already crotch deep in his BS. I knew from the stories that my friends had that this DM was brutal at times, but I was fine with a hard game, so long as there wasn't any BS to it. It wasn't a hard game though. It was downright unfair right from the start. I was introduced in a dungeon as a prisoner that the other players rescued, and so I started with no gear. Okay, fair enough. Maybe I'll find things in the dungeon to equip myself with. Plus, one of the other players gave me a weapon that they weren't using. Awesome, at least I can attack back if I need to. The dungeon progresses, and it becomes clear that there's no loot for my character in this dungeon. It's all tailored to the other player's characters, i.e., a magic tome with a particular spell the wizard wanted to learn. So I'm criminally underleveled and under-equipped. I've had to hide or run from every encounter up to this point, because everything has been drastically out of my ability to harm. Even with a nat 20, I was only able to deal 2 points of damage because of things like damage reductions. We get to the final boss room, and the DM loudly states that the orcs have been watching the party and have identified the weak link. They will do the party a favor by purging this weakness from their ranks. He proceeded to have every enemy in the room solely target me. I could only run and try to hide behind my heavier hitting companions, but I survived the encounter by the skin of my teeth, having to be pocket healed by the cleric the entire encounter. The DM followed up with giving everyone the experience earned from the dungeon, and I got nothing. Why? I didn't kill any enemies. I quit on the spot and left the table, left the house, and went home by bus. I refused to play D&D for almost 2 years after this, and it was only my best friend running a solo game for me that ignited my love for this game. This happened over 15 years ago. I recently got asked why I refused to play at any of his games, because he was looking to have a new 5th edition D&D game, and I emphatically said that I would never game with him as the DM again. Yeah, that does sound like a horrible way to be introduced to D&D. Thankfully, OP had a friend that was willing to run a solo game for him. That way, he didn't give up on the hobby for good. Who in their right mind would think putting a level 1 character in a situation meant for level 8s would have a good time or be able to do anything? Let alone expect them to level up when you won't give them EXP for not doing something that they can't really do. I would have left that table as well. Though, I think OP may be holding on to the spite of this encounter a little too hard when he says that he won't play in a game with this DM again. I mean, it was 15 years ago. people can change a whole lot over that amount of time. Hell, I would even put money on the fact that this DM probably thinks back on this and probably cringes at himself for doing that. So I'd say give him another shot, and who knows, he might have turned out to be a great DM after doing it for so long. Though, those are just my thoughts. What do y'all think? Let's move on. Yet another Furry DM by Reddit user Wallaman. Keeping this fairly short, since this isn't something particularly new or spicy for the sub, but I still want to share and laugh at my past experience. So, this group was mainly of folks that I knew and was comfortable around, with the DM being someone that I wasn't as familiar with. Now, we're all kinda raunchy humored, but for session 0, we all agreed to limit it to nothing graphic, something that the DM would continually test us on, as we really didn't set the specifics on what counts as graphic for us. The game was set in Curse of Strahd, but a good chunk of the NPCs were replaced by various anthro-type critters, a lot of shifters and lycanthropes. Thankfully, Strahd was kept vanilla. The DM pushed us to play these kinds of races for the story he had in mind, but we still ended up with the majority being more human-like, except for my foolish ass that went with my go-to favorite comfort build, a Dragonborn Paladin of Bahamut. And with that, I swiftly became the DM's favorite. He tried setting up my character with various NPCs. More than once, I had to raise my voice over him going a bit too far with describing things, like how my paladin's sense of smell could pick up, well, when a female werewolf was in heat, and trying to narrate how my character responded to it. The thing is, this wasn't something that became a major issue, since these incidents were spaced out throughout the time playing. Plus, I was in the mindset of just wanting to play with my friends, and to the DM's credit, he was pretty good at building encounters and pacing out dungeons. The thing that did spark a major issue was when I and another player decided to have our characters get together. Just one of those things that we thought would be cute and could prove for some interesting roleplay later down the line, as things get more dangerous. We seal the deal as the party camps in the valley. The Dragonborn and the Tiefling Witch disappear into a tent together with a fade to black. The table jokes about the cheeks clapping crusade, which was all good fun. But then, after the rest, when the rest of the party begins to break camp, the Dungeon Master says that our characters can't join them just yet. I ask him why, and, to paraphrase in a less graphic way, he responds, "Well, you need to wait for your knot to deflate." Don't Google it. Needless to say, I and the Tiefling player were not amused. The session halted there as we had a big talk to put in stone the specifics of what counts as graphic for us. Though the Dungeon Master wasn't happy with this sudden ruling, which I feel with my character, he should have at least gotten the picture with the past few times that I said he was going too far. The campaign did conclude with the final battle against Strahd about 5 or so sessions later, but I feel to this day that it was sped up from our usual pacing. Like the DM wanted to finish the campaign quickly and move on. Well, I would say that the DM speeding things along at the end of the campaign was probably a blessing. To put something like that in a game when everyone stated at the beginning that they wanted a campaign that wasn't lewd is kinda messed up, especially after you all had to stop him multiple times. Though, these players did do the right thing in speaking up, as in a lot of these stories, the players just remain quiet. I would say for the group to not have that dude DM again. I mean, for God's sakes, why can't people just keep their kinks to themselves? Anyway, let's move on. Nobody Showed Up by Reddit user Ayatsav. Sometimes people don't show up, and that's totally fine. Life gets in the way. Health or mental health gets in the way. Tabletop RPGs are just games, and when the crap hits the fan, the last thing you think about is, oh, and there's that tabletop RPG game, and I absolutely have to let them know that I got this major life-altering event, and because of which, I cannot pretend to be a samurai hacker for 4 hours Tuesday evening. Once, I had this idea for a one-shot, and due to the nature of the one-shot, I wanted to have a lot of people, so I found 6 players. most of my usual group, plus several more from various Discord channels. We had nice long chats with the new people, and had quite a bit of discussion with my usual group as well, all about this one shot, and people seemed to be interested. When the time came, of those 6 people, nobody showed up. I was not super impressed, to be honest. At that point, I had already GM'd a bunch of long campaigns, a bunch of one-shots, with different rule sets, and different settings. So I wasn't like broken-hearted or losing confidence or anything like that. I was just kinda surprised, and also not unhappy to get 5 to 6 hours of my life back and use them for something else that is fun. Over the next hours and days, the apologies started coming in. Apparently, everybody had some bad crap happening. So, if there's a 10% chance of something bad happening to one person, then there is a 0.0001% chance of it happening to all 6. So, I guess it's a thing that can happen, statistically speaking. Well, that certainly does suck. Though at least OP has a positive outlook on it though. But out of those 6 people, not one thought to send OP a message? I mean, that would just be common courtesy. Heck, you wouldn't even need to go into much detail. Just say, hey man, something came up, and unfortunately, I can't make the game. It's kinda odd that no one did that. Please, if you're in a campaign and you can't make a game, don't just ghost the DM. Let's move on. A new player joined our party, threatened to murder our PCs, and made the DM lose the motivation to keep playing. By Anonymous. This happened maybe a year ago. I was part of an online group that was organized off of another Discord server, I believe the Mr. Ripper Discord, and none of us knew each other. This was our second campaign, and we had the DM, me, and 2 other players, one who was with us since the first campaign, and the other since day 1. We decided to try to find a couple new players, seeing as we only had 3 PCs, and the campaign wasn't really balanced for it. It was a homebrew campaign. So, we got one guy, we'll call him Bob, and his friend. To set the scene of the campaign, there was a civil war in our country, and we were trying to seize control of some villages. As we were heading down the river and began to plan our attack, Bob mentions that he's playing a pacifist monk. Whatever, we can deal with that. Until he says that if he sees any of us killing anything, he would slit our PC's throats in our sleep. So much for a goddamn pacifist. So, after some in and out of game arguing, our wizard cast sleep and rolled extraordinarily well. Bob got pissed and kept going on a tirade about playing the game the way he wanted to play. It's just my character. Cliché shit like that. Eventually, we put our foot down and told him to shut up. He then left and took his friend with him, talking about how he'd warn him about us. I know, whatever. He did just join. So then, why am I so salty about this? After that shit, our DM completely lost any and all motivation to play D&D and be our dungeon master. This guy literally tore our party and campaign apart from the inside. We had been going on for a year online, if not longer, with players remaining from day 1. It was a miracle. We all made friends with each other and had a good time. Now I don't talk to any of them anymore. Damn, that really sucks. I will never understand why someone would want to join a game only to create a character that would be completely opposed to the party. And it's a shame that this guy was basically a hand grenade that destroyed your entire group. Though I do have to say that dissolving the entire thing over that guy is a bit of an overreaction, in my opinion. Though, what do you guys think? I'd love to know. Let's get to the next one. And then, my wife and I destroyed the campaign. By Reddit user, Rob Hodges. Many years ago, my wife and I heard about a LARP game for World of Darkness. For those who care, it was based on the Laws of the Night system. The game had been going on for years, and we were new to the concept of LARP. So I got onto the online page for the game, looked up some of the people who had messenger links in order to talk to them, and started asking questions of those people, trying to see how my wife and I could fit into the game. The LARP had several different political groups to become involved with, the largest of those groups being known as the Camarilla. While I initially was interested in that group, my online interactions with the individual who was the head of that group seemed less than encouraging, so I ended up joining the next largest group, the Anarchs. The person who I spoke with from that group is still one of my friends to this day. My wife wasn't interested in politics, so she remained independent. We had our first session with that group. It went quite well, and everyone seemed genuinely positive. As the games continued, I put on my salesperson persona and got to work converting people over to the Anarchs by selling the openness and collaboration that our group enjoyed. Meanwhile, my wife's character became involved with the Camarilla leader, the Prince, who even trusted my wife's character to remove their heart. For those who aren't familiar, having a Setite remove your heart provides your character immunity against staking attempts. The Prince was perhaps a tad too trusting, however, and forgot to check if the heart they received was actually their own. A few months into the game, and the Camarilla Prince decided that my character was perhaps a tad too successful in selling the benefits of the Anarchs, and so sent out their hit squad to finish my character off. Despite how well I performed at rock, paper, scissors, I was built as a social character and was still relatively new, so it was only a matter of time before my character was put down. Once word of my character's demise was discovered, my wife decided, quote, "I throw the prince's heart in the fire." Oh boy, and did the drama begin then. While I didn't know this, my wife had already cleared the fact that she had hidden away the prince's heart during the ritual and was free to do as she pleased with it. While it was certainly cruel to the character, the counter to that complaint was that the prince was equally cruel to my character by killing them just because they didn't like seeing the Anarchs succeed. Crying and yelling carried on, and in the end, the storyteller decided that the campaign was over. I certainly didn't wish for the players to lose the entertainment that they had, nor did I instruct my wife to exact vengeance on my character's behalf. But I do think that it's a lesson in understanding the consequences of character choices. TLDR, my wife and I join a LARP. My conflict with a rival character gets mine killed. That action gets the rival character killed, and the player complains until the game is closed from ST frustration. Now, I don't usually do stories involving LARP, as I have no experience with it myself, but the problems in this story are pretty parallel with those in tabletop RPGs. I would say that the main problem is OP's wife in this situation. She was playing a character that, as far as I can tell, would have no connection with OP's character. So why would she exact revenge on the prince for someone that she didn't have an allegiance with? I can understand why the person playing the prince would be a little miffed about that. It sucks to hear that this kerfuffle caused the game as a whole to end, especially to the players that had nothing to do with it. Though, that's just my tabletop RPG brain trying to make sense of this LARP story. Let's move on. My first time playing D&D was incredibly frustrating. By Reddit user, Good Beats. This happened quite a few years ago. In my first game, I was playing a fighter that had a unique crossbow that was more like a grenade launcher. I know making homebrew for a first character is probably a bad idea, but me and the DM were both fairly new and just wanted to have fun with it. It was a solo campaign for about a month before the DM let me know that there were a few others that wanted to join us. I was apprehensive, but I knew all of them at least a little, and it wasn't really my choice anyhow. I liked my character a lot and wanted to keep playing. The only new player that really matters to the story was an eldritch knight. One time, when we were resting, he asked if he could take a look at my crossbow, since it was unique. I had no reason to distrust them, so I said sure. Well, it turns out, eldritch knights can make a weapon bond over an hour, something that they can summon to their hand as a bonus action forever. Immediately after this rest, my weapon started vanishing randomly, and I had no idea why it was happening. The player would send private messages to the DM about when he was taking it, and I had no idea that Eldritch Knights could do that. He started hiding it in rooms of dungeons that we had already checked, or chests that we thought were empty. It was so infuriating and felt like my character's entire sense of self had just vanished. The player even started summoning it in the middle of combat, so I would try to attack but no longer have my weapon in my hand. So, long story short, DMs, please don't let a party member make a weapon bond with another player's weapon unless they consent. Well, I could see this actually being a way to do some comical roleplay. Hiding a character's weapon during downtime when there is no danger is basically a group of friends playing practical jokes on one another. But things kinda crossed the line when the Eldritch Knights started doing it during combat. Not only is that kind of a scummy thing to do as a player, but in a roleplay context, that teammate put his companion in danger by leaving him defenseless. So above table, I would talk to this player about doing this, and how it's making the game not fun for you. And on table, roleplay a confrontation and discussion about how a major aspect of being part of a team is trust. But that is all the time we have for today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.